Coming up on today's show, we've got a major Cleveland Browns report about how the Browns went into the year handling Shedeur Sanders' situation. And then Shedeur makes a bold claim now that he is getting the start. You're not going to want to miss what he had to say about the opportunity that he has this Sunday. Welcome into the Browns Report, everybody. I'm your host, Joey O'Donohue. And the first thing we're going to start with, as I said on today's show, is that major report. NFL insider Albert Breer spills the beans on what Cleveland's plan for Shedeur was entering the season. So a lot of people have speculated about what their actions have meant. Do we finally have a reason? Here's what Albert Breer had to say on Cleveland's plan. Based on what I know, I think that their intention was to redshirt him this year and maybe get a look at him at the end of the year. I think that what happened on Sunday represents why. We saw on Sunday some flashes in ability, but a guy who clearly wasn't ready to play. He's just not ready to start in the NFL. You can see it in his footwork, what he does in the face of pressure. Maybe he would benefit from sitting the whole year. The first thing I will respond to Albert Breer with is, of course he didn't look ready. He wasn't prepped to be ready. He wasn't ever given a single rep with the starters, and so obviously that's why he was not, quote-unquote, looking ready. But he at least had to admit that Shedeur did have a couple good throws, right, some flashes. And so I think it's kind of hard to judge that half of football as a debut. But the really interesting thing that Breer had said was Cleveland's intention. I mean, that line about the red shirt for Shedeur, that this was meant to be a year where he sits on the bench the entire time. Obviously, a lot of Cleveland's actions maybe indicate that to be the case, but it kind of adds up, right? I mean, if that was really the Cleveland Browns' intention, okay, that makes sense why they've never given him any reps at all. But is that the best plan for the Cleveland Browns? Well, we were all going crazy about everything they had done, right? In preseason, he was quarterback 4 on a depth chart with Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco, and Dillon Gabriel. And then when he finally got to play again in preseason in the Rams game, they put Tyler Huntley in at the end of it. Then he was quarterback 3 after Flacco got benched, so they moved on from Flacco, and they were like, well, Shedeur's still not going to be the backup. After the Flacco trade, when Cincinnati called, that changed everything. Now Shedeur's QB2 and has never gotten reps with the ones, and then he was not put in that blowout game against Miami, even though it was 30-6 in the fourth quarter. It all seemed crazy. Everyone's dropping their conspiracies. What does Cleveland have against him? But if this report from Albert Breer is true, then those things would somewhat add up. I'm not saying it's a good decision. I'm saying that might justify their actions. That if they intended him to sit on the bench and learn all season long, that's why they didn't want him to play. And maybe they really do believe that he can help them out in the future. Maybe they do believe in some of his talent, right? I mean, a lot of great quarterbacks in NFL history sat for years. Rodgers, Love, Brady, all of them had to sit and wait their turn and learned on the bench before becoming franchise quarterback starters. Stefanski also said that he works with Shedeur every morning, looking at tape, looking at films, just going over little things. Even though he's literally not getting any reps, they're still trying to develop him according to Kevin Stefanski. What doesn't make sense in this whole equation, though, is a Dillon Gabriel draft pick. So if this was really the plan, to let Shedeur sit on the bench and learn, soak it in, and become a franchise quarterback of the future, why would they draft another rookie ahead of him? It would make more sense that they kept Flacco, didn't draft Gabriel, kept Pickett even for that matter, or just a couple veterans for Shedeur to sit and learn behind. No, the fact of the matter is they picked Dillon Gabriel. They evaluated Gabriel as the higher prospect. They've said consistently that Gabriel is their starting quarterback. Even this week, Stefanski said if Gabriel cleared concussion protocol, he would have been the starter. Shedeur is starting this Sunday because of Gabriel's injury. And that contradicts what Jimmy Haslam said in the preseason, which was he wants to evaluate both of the rookies this year, that it is, quote-unquote, important to do exactly that. So, no, it doesn't necessarily add up that everyone in the Browns organization wanted Shedeur to sit and learn for an entire year. Stefanski perhaps wanted that to be the case. But the bottom line here, shocker, There's dysfunction in the Browns organization. No one's on the same page. Jimmy Haslam tells us one thing. Stefanski tells us another. Andrew Berry doesn't even speak to the media during the bye week, even though he has for the past 6 years. No one wants to give us answers. And we're left here speculating with different reports like the one we just heard from Albert Breer. And so now the fact that Shedeur is finally getting a start in the National Football League, all eyes are going to be on this. It's going to mean a lot. Nick Wright told us this is the most important game of Shedeur's life. If the fact of the matter is that he was never supposed to play this year and that he's not going to play the rest of the year unless there's another injury to Gabriel, well, this might be the only chance that Shedeur gets to start for the Cleveland Browns this season. A lot's riding on this game. A lot of eyes are going to be on it for his first start. He's even said he's got to ramp up his development quickly because of the situation. And he has a chance to prove something here. He has a chance to go out there and say that I should have been in contention to be the starting quarterback. Never should I have been quarterback 4 before the season even started. And so can he prove it? We're going to talk about that in just a little bit. Can Shedeur use this Sunday to solidify himself as the permanent starter? Reporters asked him that. They asked Stefanski that. We're going to look at what they said and if this is a true possibility. But before we do any of that, I want to give a special shout out to our friends over at PrizePicks. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. The hard-hitting football action is even better with PrizePicks. The weather might be changing, but the feeling of being right never gets old. So keep the season rolling on PrizePicks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. Football is in full swing now on Sundays, and I'm big into daily fantasy with PrizePicks. Honestly, I love doing it. I'm obsessed with it. It makes every single game more entertaining. And before the Browns play, I lock in on all my players in my lineup and their player projections. PrizePicks is simple to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. PrizePicks also offers injury reboots. If one of your players leaves the game in the first half and doesn't return, PrizePicks won't count it as a loss. You know I had to make a lineup for this week, and I want the more on Shedeur. More than half a passing touchdown, more than 157.5 passing yards, and then to get another team in there, I've got an easy one. More than half a field goal made for Michael Badgley, but I expect to make some money with number 12's performance. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it is good to be right. So Shedeur was asked if he thinks he could earn his way to be the starter if he plays really well this Sunday. Shedeur said, I don't think too much into that. I think in the moment, the present, today, right? He doesn't want to speculate if that's going to be the case. Stefanski was asked this same question as well. You know, Stefanski is usually pretty with a man of few words, let's say. Doesn't really like to give us many answers, and that remained true in his answer to this question. He just said, yeah, I'm obviously focused on this game. So both of them giving pretty vague answers about if Shedeur can earn his way to be the starting quarterback. A lot of the Browns' actions reflect that it wouldn't be very possible. I think it would take a monster game from Shedeur Sanders that could get this in contention, and then another bad game from Dillon Gabriel for this to really be a benching of a rookie quarterback that you drafted in the 3rd round. And Shedeur, one thing I loved about his presser as well is he's building up this moment. He said to the media, I know a lot of y'all are going to be there. I know you can't miss it. You cannot miss this moment. He knows it's box office. There's going to be eyes on it. Shedeur then expanded on this idea and said, I know our fans have a lot of expectations and hope. I would be doing a disservice to myself and disservice to the organization if I didn't feel like I am the guy. I feel like I'm the guy. I know I'm the guy. But you'll just have to be able to see the game gotta speak. I love the mentality. I want a quarterback, a leader that says that. That says, I know I'm the guy. I know I can be the guy. And look, if he goes out there and doesn't play well and, fades out of the NFL in a couple of years, okay, fine, whatever. I'd rather him have been confident in himself and give it his best effort for us, because the ceiling part of it, the other part of it is, what if he does go on to be a franchise quarterback? What if he does have many successful years in the NFL? The point is, I want guys in our locker room that believe they can do that. We need a more winning mentality in Cleveland. We've lacked it for decades. We've been waiting for the guy for decades. So if Shedeur's telling us that he can be that guy, that he knows he is that guy, I want to see it. All the more reason that I want to see him play and want him to get that opportunity. You know what I'm saying? I haven't heard Dylan Gabriel tell us that, quite frankly. And so I like the mentality. I like that Shedeur is bringing that moxie, that confidence, that charisma. You know who else did that for Cleveland? Baker Mayfield. He's the only other example I can really think of in recent memory at the quarterback position. So it's been so long. Do we finally have it? You'll have to find out. This Sunday will help tell us. What say you about Shedeur's comments, though? Do you like his mentality? Give me a Y for yes. If you don't like it, I know there's some people that think, well, maybe it's arrogant. Maybe they're saying stop talking and, getting more media attention on Cleveland. You could type N for no. But personally, I like the confidence. I like that he's saying he's a winner and he wants to win for the Cleveland Browns. So give me a Y for yes or an N for no. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this one as we gear up, ramp up for Shedeur's first start this Sunday. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single piece of news with the Cleveland Browns. I'll be here for you every single day. Appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you next time.